Most people don't fail because they're weak. They fail because they're obedient. Not obedient to a person, not obedient to a boss, obedient to a pattern. A pattern that rewards effort but punishes leverage. A pattern that praises consistency but quietly caps outcomes. A pattern that feels like progress until you look up and realize nothing has actually changed. You've been told the formula your entire life. Work harder, be patient, stay disciplined, don't quit. And here's the dangerous part. All of that advice works, just not in the way you think. It works perfectly at keeping you inside the system because the system doesn't need rebels, it doesn't need geniuses, it doesn't even need talent. It needs people who try, people who show up, people who grind, people who keep believing that the next push is the one that breaks them free. That belief is the cage. Most people never question the structure they're operating inside. They just try to move faster within it. That's like running harder on a treadmill and calling it progress. The speed increases, the sweat increases, the exhaustion increases, but your position doesn't change. And the system loves that because effort without leverage looks productive, but produces nothing transferable. You don't own it. You don't compound it. You don't escape with it. You just repeat it day after day, year after year. Here's the truth most people never hear. The system doesn't stop you from winning. It just defines what winning is allowed to look like. Stable income, predictable growth, controlled ceilings, incremental rewards for compliance, enough comfort to stay, not enough freedom to leave. That's not an accident. That's design. And once you see that design, you can't unsee it because the real trap isn't low pay, it's linear effort. Linear effort is effort that resets to zero every day. You work, you get paid, the clock resets, you stop working, the income stops, you slow down, everything collapses. There's no carryover, no momentum, no ownership. You're paid for motion, not position. And as long as you're paid for motion, you'll never be free. Freedom only comes from position. Position is leverage. Leverage is when the output continues without proportional input. That's the line most people never cross. Not because they can't, but because they've been trained not to. Think about it. From school onward, you're rewarded for compliance, not ownership. Do the assignment, follow the rules, wait for instructions, raise your hand, ask permission. Then you graduate and the pattern continues. Clock in, execute tasks, meet expectations, wait for promotion, ask for raises. Everything is permission-based, and the people who control permission control outcomes. The system doesn't need to crush you. It just needs to delay you. Delay is more effective than resistance because resistance creates friction. Delay creates hope. Hope is the most efficient control mechanism ever invented. Hope keeps you patient. Hope keeps you compliant. Hope keeps you trying just a little longer. And that's why most people stay stuck far longer than they should. They're not lazy. They're not incapable. They're early inside the wrong framework. The system tells you you're not there yet, so you keep preparing. Another course, another certification, another year of experience, another resume update. Preparation becomes procrastination in disguise. Not because you're afraid, but because you've been told that readiness comes before action. That's backwards. In leverage systems, action creates readiness. Ownership creates clarity. Distribution creates confidence. Repetition creates skill. But the system doesn't want you acting before permission, because action without permission creates exits, and exits break the model. Here's what most people don't realize. The system isn't built to extract your money, it's built to extract your time. Money is replaceable, time isn't. If you trade time for money, the system wins. If you trade time to build leverage, you flip the equation. But leverage doesn't feel safe at first. Leverage feels unstable, uncertain, uncomfortable, because there's no immediate feedback. When you build leverage, you're invisible for a long time. No applause, no praise, no validation, just output into the void. And that's why most people quit leverage paths early, not because they don't work, but because they don't signal progress fast enough. The system conditions you to expect weekly rewards, paychecks, grades, performance reviews. Leverage doesn't care about your expectations. Leverage compounds quietly and then violently. Most people never stick around long enough to see the curve bend. They quit right before momentum appears, and the system quietly absorbs them back into linear effort. Here's the harsh part. The system doesn't trap you by force, it traps you by offering you a deal. Security now, in exchange for ceilings later. Predictability now, in exchange for ownership never. Comfort now, in exchange for optionality gone. Most people take the deal because they don't know there's another option. Or worse, they know, but they underestimate the cost of delay. Every year spent in linear effort is a year not compounding leverage, and leverage compounds faster than effort ever could. That's why two people can work equally hard and end up in completely different places. One builds skills, the other builds assets. One builds reputation, the other builds resumes. One builds distribution, the other builds loyalty to systems that don't love them back. The system doesn't hate you. It just doesn't need you to be free. Freedom is inefficient for centralized structures. Free people don't need permission. Free people don't wait their turn. Free people don't fit neatly into hierarchies. So the system trains you to self-regulate, to question yourself, to wait, to doubt timing. You're rushing. Be realistic. Take the safe route. Those phrases aren't advice, they're control language. They keep you optimizing comfort instead of building leverage. Here's a question most people never ask. What would happen if you stopped trying to be impressive and started trying to be positioned? Positioned in front of attention. Positioned in front of demand. Positioned in front of distribution, because attention is leverage. Distribution is leverage. Ownership is leverage. And none of those require permission. They require output. Consistent, unglamorous, unvalidated output. That's the part most people can't tolerate. They want reassurance before results. But leverage only rewards those who move without guarantees. The system conditions you to avoid risk. Leverage requires you to embrace asymmetric risk. Small downside, massive upside. That's why leverage paths look irrational from the outside. Posting content with no audience, building products before sales, publishing ideas before recognition. To the system-trained mind, that looks reckless. To someone who understands leverage, it's inevitable, because the upside isn't linear. One piece of content can out-earn 10 years of effort. One asset can replace a salary. One distribution channel can rewrite your trajectory, but only if you start early enough. Most people wait until they feel ready. By then, the opportunity window has narrowed, not because it disappeared, but because competition increased. Leverage rewards early movers disproportionately, and the system delays you just long enough to miss the asymmetric window. Then it offers you stability as consolation. That's the trade, and most people accept it without ever realizing what they gave up. Here's the brutal truth. Hard work isn't rare, discipline isn't rare, consistency isn't rare, leverage is rare, and rarity determines value. If you're doing what everyone else is doing, no matter how hard, you're replaceable. If you're building something that compounds independently of your time, but you're not, that's the dividing line. The system teaches you to be valuable inside it. Leverage allows you to be valuable outside it. That's why the transition feels so uncomfortable. You're moving from validation-based progress to reality-based progress. Reality doesn't clap, it compounds. And compounding is boring until it's unstoppable. Most people never get past the boring phase. They quit because it isn't working. But what they really mean is, it isn't rewarding me emotionally yet. The system trained them to expect constant feedback. Leverage requires delayed gratification at a level most people have never practiced. And that's why so few people escape. Not because the door is locked, because the waiting room is comfortable. The system doesn't chain you to the floor. It gives you a chair with just enough padding to stay seated, just enough distraction to forget time is passing, just enough progress to avoid panic, until one day you look up and realize the game never changed, only the years did. Here's what separates the people who get out They stop asking, what should I do next? And start asking, what am I building that compounds? They stop optimizing effort. They start optimizing leverage. They stop measuring hours. They start measuring assets. They stop trying to win approval. They start trying to win positioning. And once that shift happens, everything changes. Your actions look different. Your priorities look different. Your patience looks different. You're no longer in a rush because you're no longer stuck. You're playing a longer game with asymmetric upside. And that's the part the system never teaches, because once you see leverage, linear effort loses its grip on you. You can't unknow it. You can't go back to believing effort alone is enough. And that's why awareness is dangerous, not to you, but to the system. Because an aware person doesn't rebel loudly. They exit quietly. They stop complaining. They stop arguing. They stop waiting. They build. And one day, without drama or announcement, they're gone, not trapped, not angry, not resentful, just free. That's the real threat, not rebellion, escape,